Welcome to The Explainer. You know, if you've ever tried learning another language, you know that feeling, right? It can be an amazing experience and also just so incredibly frustrating. Today, we're going to dig into why that is.
I mean, we all have that one friend, don't we? The one who just seems to absorb new languages like a sponge, while the rest of us are still struggling with hello. So what's the secret? Is it all about starting when you're a kid? Is it some kind of natural talent? Or is it just plain old hard work? Well, that's exactly what we're going to investigate today, the science behind what really makes a successful language learner.
All right, let's jump right in with the big one. The idea that pretty much everyone has heard, that there's this magic window when you're a kid for learning languages. Scientists actually have a name for this. It's called the critical period hypothesis, and the theory is pretty straightforward. When we're young, our brains are basically just wired for language. They're super flexible, super ready to learn. But that special window of opportunity, well, it doesn't stay open forever.
This idea was really pushed into the spotlight by a guy named Eric Lenenberg, a real pioneer in this field. Back in the 60s, he basically said, look, after puberty, the whole game changes. That effortless, almost automatic learning you see in little kids, it's replaced by a much more conscious, and yeah, let's be honest, a much more labored effort for us adults.
So how important is this period? Well, tragically, we know the answer from some really rare and absolutely heartbreaking cases of children who grew up with no language at all.
And that brings us to one of the most infamous and tragic cases in all of modern science, the story of a girl who came to be known as Jeannie.
Can you imagine? For more than 10 years, Jeannie was kept in total isolation, completely cut off from the world. And that means she wasn't just deprived of human contact, she was deprived of language, right smack in the middle of that critical period we were just talking about.
So, after she was finally rescued, scientists and linguists worked with her around the clock. And you know what? She did learn. She learned words, lots of them. She could name things. She could express emotions. But the one thing she never really got the hang of was grammar. You know, the rules, the syntax that stitches all those words into meaningful sentences.
But here's what I find so fascinating. Susan Curtis, the linguist who spent the most time with Jeannie, had this incredible perspective. She basically said, yeah, okay, so maybe she missed the window for perfect grammar, but who cares? Jeannie found a way to share her heart, her mind. And from that perspective, she absolutely succeeded. It really makes you think about what language is for, doesn't it?
Now, Jeannie's case is obviously extreme. We're talking about a total lack of a first language. So what does this mean for the rest of us? For people learning a second language? Is it a hard deadline? Does the ability just fall off a cliff? Well, a really important study gives us a much clearer picture. Okay, so check this out. In 1989, researchers Johnson and Newport did this really clever study. They found a bunch of native Chinese and Korean speakers who had all moved to the US, but at different ages. Then they had them do a pretty simple task. Just listen to sentences in English and say, yep, that's correct, or nope, that's wrong. The results? Oh, they were super revealing.
So here's the breakdown. The people who got there between ages 3 and 7, they were basically indistinguishable from native speakers. Perfect scores. But after age 7, something started to change. Performance began the slow, steady slide all the way up to puberty. And after puberty, well, it was kind of a free-for-all. Age didn't seem to matter as much, and there was a ton of variation from person to person. So the big takeaway here is that it's not like a switch flips off. It's not a door slamming shut. It's much more like a gentle sloping hill.
All right, so age is definitely a piece of the puzzle. But we've all met them, right? Adults who just get languages. It seems to come so easily to them. Which leads to the next big question. Are some people just born with it? Is there like a language gene?
Well, researchers call this language learning aptitude, and it's exactly what it sounds like, that special knack some people have. It's not about how smart you are in general, your overall IQ, or even how motivated you are. It's a specific set of talents just for learning languages.
So how do you even measure something like that? The classic test is called the MLAT, the Modern Language Aptitude Test, and it breaks down this knack into a few key things. First, there's your phonetic coding ability. Basically, how good is your ear for new sounds? Can you hear them and remember them? Then you've got grammatical sensitivity. That's that gut feeling for whether a sentence sounds right. And finally, associative memory, which is really just how fast you can cram new vocabulary into your brain.
But you know, science doesn't stand still.
And newer research is pointing to another absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle, something the original MLAT didn't really focus on, and that is your working memory.
Okay, the easiest way to think about working memory is like the RAM in your computer. It's your brain's active temporary workspace. It's what lets you hold information and, well, work with it. So when you hear a really long sentence in a new language, it's your working memory that's holding on to the beginning of it while your brain figures out the end. And a really important part of this is called the phonological loop. That's basically the little voice in your head that repeats a new word over and over again until, finally, it sticks.
So we've got age and we've got aptitude, but let's talk about the stuff that's actually in our control. And that brings us to maybe the most powerful factor of all, our inner drive, our motivation.
And it turns out there are two main flavors of motivation. The first is called integrative. This is when you're learning a language because you genuinely love the culture, you want to connect with the people, you want to be a part of that community. The other type is instrumental. This is more about a practical goal. You need to pass an exam, you want a promotion at work, you have to fulfill a school requirement. Both can work, but they come from very different places.
All right, and for our last piece of the puzzle, let's talk about something a little different. It turns out that even your basic cognitive style, just how you see the world, can have an impact. It's this idea of being field independent versus field dependent. So imagine you're looking at a forest. What do you see first? Do you notice the individual trees, the bark, the leaves? That's being field independent. You're good at picking out details from the background, which is awesome for things like grammar exercises. Or do you see the forest as a whole, the overall shape and feel of it? That's being field dependent. You're better at seeing the big picture, which can be really helpful for just getting the vibe and flow of a natural conversation. And the key thing here is that one isn't better than the other. They're just different ways of learning.
So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway? It's that there is no single magic bullet. Success in learning a new language is really this complex recipe. It's a combination of your age, yeah, that's a factor. It's your built-in aptitude, your cognitive wiring, and maybe the most important ingredient of all, it's your personal drive.
And that, right there, is the most empowering part of all this. Look, you can't change how old you are. You can't just decide to have a better working memory, but your motivation, your reason why you're doing this, that is 100% in your control. So it really isn't just about the hand you were dealt. It's about how you decide to play it. It's not just what you have, but how you use it. So, what's your driving force?